you don't want your trend to go up steadily. It's not like the stock market. You don't want your blue line to trend upwards the entire time, because at some point the gradient of improvement is going to continue to slow down. Then you're finally going to plateau, and it's not going to be a plateau as in I need to unload. It's going to be a plateau as in I've overtrained, and it might take 2 to 3 months to unload this.
Sorry, man. My butter coffee got the best of me.
Your butter. Hey, man, it's a time to be flexible, and you were flexible with me yesterday. Today is actually a Friday. We rarely record on Fridays, but it is. It's April 3rd, 2020. We usually come to you Mondays and Thursdays, and if not, we at least come to you twice a week. This is the Crushing Iron podcast. You were flexible with me yesterday. It was a little bit of a crazy day at the Bruce House, so not like anything like super stressful. It's just a lot going on right now. There's a lot going on in the world, but then in our house with I'm working, obviously Allie's working. We're both super thankful that we can work, but then we are also trying to manage our 3.5-year-old Hayden at home, and sometimes there's just not enough minutes in the day because we're really trying to do our best to manage giving him a little bit of structure, but also being flexible and also having fun doing things. And the first week we were kind of in. We're into week 3. This is our 3rd week of our own shelter in place type ordeal. Besides getting out for runs and going to the grocery store. You and I both live in Tennessee. You're in Nashville. I'm in Chattanooga. Now there's an official, I guess, shelter in place. Probably just about a month late, but whatever. Let's say we've been hanging tough for 3. This 3rd week has been a little bit better, but yeah, just trying to be flexible and go with the flow and think, hey, if I can do it tomorrow and there's not going to be any disruption, why make today more stressful? And it was a good choice. And hey, I appreciate your flexibility and happy to re-extend it to your what sounds like a slight butter coffee malfunction here this morning.
No malfunction. It
It made
happens
a
when it happens.
That happens. Sounds like a malfunction. Before we get rolling, hey, this is for those of you listening, this is the Crushing Iron podcast, episode 361. If it's your first time listening, we appreciate you tuning in. We hope you're happy and healthy and navigating these interesting and unique times as best you can. And we appreciate you giving us your ear today and hope to bring you some great information. We've kind of asked our Facebook group to go into that. But before we go into that, I have to ask you a question. And this is something that's kind of been weighing on my mind here the last 48 hours. And I've been concerned about people with this isolation going on. People have been isolated. They've been away from people. They've been away from connecting, and it's starting to change people. And I noticed, and you're not a frequent Facebook poster. It's like once in a 2 months thing. You made a comment the other day on Facebook that to me feels a little alarming. And I wanted to do a check with you. You claimed Ozark was better than Peaky Blinders, and I want you to clarify.
Oh, I thought you were going down my other comment.
No, I'm not going down that road, man. That's going to something that actually matters. This is at the core, or not the core. This is a pretty solid, deep layer of our friendship is our love for Peaky Blinders. And I just want to know, after you posted it, and did you have regret after you posted it? Herm Edwards says, just don't hit send. You hit send, you posted it. Do you feel like you were being a prisoner of the moment, or do you feel like it was justified? Do you stand by your statement that Ozark has taken over Peaky Blinders? You retracted your statement a little bit to me via text message, off the air, that they're tied for first. But I just wanted you to clarify for our audience.
Oh, well, first of all, I did have a different post, and it was kind of a social experiment in a way, and it was just a different type of thing. And then I came back with the Ozark Peaky Blinders thing almost immediately the next day to see if I had any friends left. I should say friends left in my old from my old job. But here's what I think. I've been thinking about this. The Ozark thing, as we know, Ozark is out. It's easy to become a prisoner in the moment. I watched Peaky Blinders, the most recent season, about 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. And I've thought about it. I think what it is Peaky Blinders to me feels like more like a classical music. and so
Okay.
they are number one in in that category, the classic
You're
kind of.
like, did you also move like to Sweden or something or Switzerland? Did you also move there? Because you're being very like political right now in terms of we want to be friends with everybody. So you're basically saying like Peaky Blinders is like the top of the charts in the classical music, and Ozark is top of the charts and what alternative?
Well, I have a few. I have several favorite bands. Yeah, so it's almost like to me, Peaky Blinders is a little bit of Led Zeppelin or something like that, and Ozark might be, uh, like AC/DC or like classic rock. It's a little more. I just said classical. You know what I'm trying to say here. I think
I
that
get you.
Peaky
I
Blinders
understand.
has
I
more
understand.
shelf life in the long term for me because it is a classic historical piece.
Yeah.
And Ozark is kind of more like modern rock right now. So it's a tie, but
Okay.
for different
I'll give you
genres.
that. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Like
How's
we
that?
all have multiple favorite movies. There's sometimes they're just different depending on we have favorite documentaries, favorite drama, favorite comedy. Okay, I'll give you that. It was very PC, which I expected, but I just wanted you to clarify now that we can get back into the meat of our topics today. As most of you, if you've been listening to this or you're just listening to this and even like remotely real time, which I think this is going to have more of a real time feel for 30, 60, 90 days than a lot of other podcasts we've done, is obviously we're all kind of in this, having our life thrown at us in this pandemic that's going on and under different restraints, and races have been canceled. And to be honest, most people I don't think anticipate racing at all, period, until August. I was Chattanooga 70.3 was postponed this week. They moved that date to August, which is the earliest postponed date. Most of their postponed dates have been like September, October, November, even December this year. Um, so most triathletes have found themselves kind of like back in. It's really interesting, and I think if maybe we spin it this way, and we'll go into more like in-depth questions and topics as we kind of threw out. We usually do Q&As with our closed Facebook group, which is Crushing Iron Group. If you want to hop on Facebook and ask to be let in, simple question, answer it, we'll let you in. Great people in there, great wisdom, great experience, and just a really good bunch of people. But instead of just asking for like just specific questions, which most of those questions are related to just the triathlete or the person that asked them, and we still got plenty of those. We really want to just kind of get what's like just the general pulse, of what's going on in triathletes' minds right now, as we're all in this unique, uncharted territory for all of us. That is also kind of a unifying experience in that which I want to talk about that a little bit later too, is the amount of grace I feel like people are showing each other now is something that I hope continues on after this. Is another half glass full moment for me from the last podcast. But I do find it interesting that people have expressed or articulated or said or written like more gracious, patient types of, maybe not everybody, but most people. It's like because we all have this underlying stress that's going on. It's the same. Some people have more, some people have less, but there's like this common denominator that now the entire world here in the US, the entire US has. And so I feel like it's done a good job of like allowing people to be a little more relaxed and laid back and accepting and show grace to people through this difficult time. But we wanted to just get the pulse, and we kind of threw it out in the Facebook group. We had a ton of questions in there, a bunch that I think were really, really good in terms of just what general ideas and thoughts and struggles and feelings people are having right now. But for the most part, I think it's an interesting time because what's happened is, and again, I hope to spin this in a good way, is like we went from January, February, March, most of March, getting ready for the race season. We've done our base building. We're building up. We're getting ready to race. Here we go, race season, and now we're back to like Christmas. Like in terms of like how you have to look at your race season, and I think it's very difficult. It's like you do all. It's like for a lot of athletes, maybe the analogy is you're trying to climb Everest, or you're trying to climb this huge mountain, and you get to base camp, and you're getting your stuff ready. You've trained, you've worked hard, and then you're making it with the mountain. You're about halfway, and then they're like, the radio comes in. They're like, hey, you got to come back down to base camp. There's a storm coming in. And
Mm.
you're like, dude, I was like halfway there. Like, I'm so close. What do I do? Do I hang tough right here halfway up the mountain and weather the storm and try to still be ready, even though I might run out my gear might run out, my food run out, my fluids, whatever? Or do I retreat back to base camp, get health, stay healthy, be prepared. So when I do have the opportunity now to climb and summit this mountain, or complete this journey, or complete this process, or reach this race and this event, this destination, then I'll be ready. And it's just an interesting time. And so there were a lot of questions. You did a really great job, at least for me, outlining them in an email that we can kind of go through. I don't want to go through all of them because I feel like some of them are more of our like kind of like Q&A things, or I might just try to do a better job of responding very quickly instead of us covering like 4 questions. But I'm ready to jump in unless you have like a topic that you wanted to dive right in on, or something else I haven't discussed that you feel is pertinent before we launch this.
No, again, I think that's probably a good approach, just to go through. And yeah, there's like some questions that are a little more generally based on the pulse of our community, and I think we should stick with that rather than get into specifics.
Yeah, like please list me. And we might get to these, but for the purpose of this conversation, this podcast, like I really do want to keep it the feel and the pulse of the community, and what's something everybody can take, not, can you please list me your 8 specific plyometric exercises to do between noon and 3 p.m. on a Thursday. That's really specific to you. But the first one, which I thought was great, from Arin Christensen, was, what does it mean to maintain a good level of base fitness and mental stability in these strange times? And that is, I think, like it may have been the best question that we got. It was the first one, and it is so general, but it is also so relative to you and your goals. And I know this athlete specifically. I know that his long-term goal is Ironman Florida at the end of the year, which is in November. And I think that it's interesting that the people who sign up for like late season races have this like, oh, it's so far away, and how am I going to keep my motivation? And a lot of people don't like to sign up for late season races because it's hard to keep motivation for such a long period of time. And now those people who have races in like October, November, like, dude, nothing's changed for me. I'm just cruising along. I'm still in like, this base phase or whatever kind of training block they're in. And, the training part to build and then peak and then get race specific. They're like, really nothing's changed for me. My A race is still out there, and you have athletes that were supposed to race here in like 3 weeks at Ironman Texas who were like, that was my A race. I trained all winter doing 4 and 5 hour rides, and now like what am I supposed to do? And so I think it's relative, on what does it mean to maintain a good level of base fitness. It's I'll use myself for an example. I am training for a 100-miler in August. I was supposed to have a 50-miler this last weekend, matter of fact, and I trained a ton. I was putting in 50, 60-mile run weeks, and then it was taken away. In the last few weeks, I've gone back to like 30, 35, 40. Not because I can't keep doing the 60, but because there's this ebb and flow of fitness and sustainable fitness, which
Yeah,
is
we talked about that the other day in the
right.
groups.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to like you don't want your trend to go up steadily. It's not like the stock market. You don't want your blue line to trend upwards the entire time, because at some point the trend is going, like the gradient of improvement is going to continue to slow down. Then you're finally going to plateau, and it's not going to be a plateau as in I need to unload. It's going to be a plateau as in I've overtrained, and it might take 2 to 3 months to unload this. Whereas you want peaks and valleys, because you peak up, then you go down your valley a little bit, then you peak up a little bit higher, higher point the next time, then you go back down, then you peak back up, so you want to have these ebbs and flows, because your body is something that has to, like I refer to like recovery weeks as recovery weeks, but a lot of it, if you could probably rephrase it, just look as like, a week that's called just adapting. And what adapting is like, that's what recovery weeks are, is your body is adapting to the load, soaking it all in, and then ready to do it again. But if you don't allow those down periods to happen, those recovery weeks, those going back to things, like you're going to plateau, and you're not going to reach, like if we're using a numbered scale, if you trend up, you might go, 1 all the way to 20, and 20 might be your peak, because that's all you can do, because you haven't rested, you haven't recovered, you haven't let your body soak things in so much that it can go to 25 or 30. Whereas if you're going on more of a traditional scale, you might trend up from 1 to 6. drop down back down to a 4. And athletes hate this because they see any drop in their training peaks, they think they're getting unfit. But what happens is your body has to absorb these things, get more fit, and then be ready to rock. So you might go from 1 to 6, drop down to a 4, go from 4 to a 10, drop down to an 8, go from an 8 up to a 14, drop down to a 12, 12 to 16, down to 14, 14 to 18, down to 16, so on and so on until you get to 30. So you're getting that 30, you've had the downs, you've been able to absorb things, you've gotten better, you've gotten faster, you got more fit, you feel fresh, you're injury free. But then you have people who are going to be obsessed with keeping and staying in that build phase because it's enticing, because it's fun, because they feel fit, because you're doing sessions that allow you to express your fitness. Like you're not doing, you're not creating like just a giant ton of volume with cycling. You're not predominantly in zone 1 and zone 2 if you're running and cycling right now. And the very few of us that can swim, it's where you can start to see like, what the icing on the cake might look like, or, the mile repeats or tempo runs. Like I want these because I can feel fit. I can see it, because we get bored, we get insecure when we don't do those things because we feel like we're not getting fit. But the reality is you are. And it's all about how far away your main race is. And then the mental stability side of it is I think the toughest part, because I think a lot of athletes right now have become disengaged and unmotivated. Yes, there is a huge portion of people that it's justified, right? Like we talk about this a lot on the podcast, is that like in order to be motivated, for a lot of people in I guess in one section of this term of motivation and excited and committed, is you have to have the energy to be that. If you don't sleep and you're highly stressed and you're so exhausted and your life is, an unscheduled, obstacle-ridden mess right now, which a lot of people's are, it's going to be hard to have the energy to even be motivated. So you have people who you think, okay, well, I can totally see why workouts might be struggling, or you're lacking the extra oomph you might have mentally and emotionally to get your workouts done. That's acceptable and it's totally understandable. Like it's not a shot to you as an athlete, or that you have these problems of being, not able to commit, and you have these struggles of motivation. Then you have another part, which is, and I think this is very reflective of what many triathletes do, and I can tell you this from personal experience because I used to do this way back, like before I got sober, to be honest.
Ooh, good
is is you look at these events as days to validate yourself, as opportunities and experiences to justify what you think or don't think about yourself. You've got this redemption race. You've got this race that's going to make you into this new person, that you're going to show so and so, and you're going through these really tough times. And I'm going to show everybody that I can do an Ironman. And I DNF last year, and I got a revenge race, and I'm going to show people I can do it. I'm going to do this, and this is going to make me feel worth it. This is going to be my why. And then it's gone, and you feel lost. You feel empty. You feel like an opportunity has been taken from you. And it's interesting. You can tell this, like if you follow like an Ironman branded event on Facebook, and like they postpone it or do anything, and they're like, you can tell by reading the comments who is in what boat. Oh, thanks for telling us. We appreciate it. This is disappointing. Versus this is devastating. And if a postponed race is devastating to you, then you need to look no further than dropping your chin and looking at where your heart is, and then looking up and where your mind is. Because if a removal of a race to you is devastating, then what is it about your why that puts this one day, this one event, this span of 4 hours to 16 hours in the middle of a year that's so long and so rough, and a journey that's so long, and a process that's so detailed and so thought out? What is it that makes it so devastating? And I think that's what you see a lot of people who that opportunity has been taken away. So it's not so much that their motivation has been taken away, because they didn't have that. To me, I wouldn't say you had motivation to begin with. You had an expectation of validation that was robbed from you. So now you resent that fact. And so if you think, well, if I can't do this and show myself on this one day, then what am I even training for? But if you're a person who really, really loves like just getting out and being a part of the work, right? Of working hard at something and building something and creating something, which is you, which is a task and a mini event, if you will, that you do daily, then that's you become that. You are that. Not all these days mean nothing unless you can race. Because if that's the way that you think about racing and approach racing, then you're going to be left on whole. Because once you fill that cup on race day, you're going to wake up that morning with a leak. And what I mean is that over the next week, the euphoria, the adrenaline, the glitz and glamour of your red carpet finish is going to fade. And you're going to wake up 7 days later realizing you feel the exact same. You now just have a $450 jacket you bought the next morning that's not fulfilling and changing the fabric of who you are. And if you can't find a way to just love getting up and love getting to work, because what we do when we go out and we train, we exercise, is we're not just working on our fitness. We're not just trying to get better. We're working on ourselves. We're showing that we can create a habit. We're showing that we can do something positive. We're showing that we can be mindful of ourselves and get out and execute a specific session. We are taking care of ourselves. We're showing, awareness and taking care of our bodies, which is healthy. Like, we're challenging ourselves. We're doing things when we don't want to. So we're showing that, we have the ability to overcome things. Like, those are the things, those many little wins that you find where you have these conversations with yourself. Like, those are the things you remember. And I think that's just a very important thing that we all need to kind of remember and wrap around our brains right now. And hopefully this can be a time for people who only care about the race and the glitz and the glamour and what it might do for who they want to be or who they think they're not, is that you have that opportunity every day to kind of be like, man, I did this and I didn't want to do it, but I did anyway, and boy, do I feel good. Or I went out and I just kept moving. I kept doing something that's consistent, because a lot of athletes have like emailed me or messaged this past week and been like, my life is so out of control right now. Like, there are so many obstacles being thrown my way that the best plan to have right now is to not have a plan at all. But if I didn't have that 35 minutes on my training peak schedule, or I didn't have that hour and a half bike ride, then I would feel even more lost. Because those are these small little time frames that I feel like I have control of, to take time for myself, to feel like I've got some semblance of my hands, maybe not both hands, but like I got a couple fingers on the steering wheel that is life right now. So I feel like I'm a little in control, versus it's like in some like randomized, broken down, malfunctioning Tesla cruise control, and your hands are like handcuffed behind your back, which is how a lot of us feel right now with like so many things that are changing. So it's about all those good things. It's about all those positive things. I think that right now it's the best time to shift that process and that mentality to enjoying the process, because if you can't enjoy getting better every day, I can tell you this from experience. Races, specific races, any race, the amount of expectation you put on it to fulfill you the way you see it, you're always going to be let down. Every time. Races don't do that for you. Events don't do that for you. You do that for you. So start working on that and start kind of thinking that and shaping that when we have had this, like, for many of us, this like relief of that pressure of racing is, I can find happiness right now in training, because right now that might be the only happiness that you have, right? That feels that lowers your anxiety, that makes you feel less stress. It's a good time to focus on that.
All right.
Yeah, we usually negative split our podcast, and I may have gone on a little too hard today.
Let's see if I can. Yeah, let's see if I can
Sorry
bring
about
it
that,
back, man. This
I
is
know,
like the
right?
recovery section of the race.
I
Everybody
know.
kick back, and I will see if I can lower that heart rate a little bit
I
for
know, dude.
everybody.
I'm like the 50-54 guys who go out like 28 miles an hour the first 30 miles of the bike ride. I'm about to crash in a minute. Go ahead, reel me back
That's
in.
me, man. The older bikers. Um, well, you said something there. Like I was talking, I don't have a race on the calendar, right? And it's been a weird one because normally I would, and I would have done something early in the year, but I'm still contemplating picking up maybe a race at the end of the year, full. I've been thinking about it, and the question is huge regarding, maintaining a good level of fitness and mental stability right now because I was like the biggest thing on my mind actually right now is figuring out what stinks in my refrigerator. It's like I haven't really like set any goals, and this thing's been going on for a couple of days now, and it's really frustrating. So I'm gonna have to really dig in there and dig deep. It's like the mystery stench. It's like
Baking
what?
soda, man. You
I
got
got
baking
that in
soda
there,
in
but
here?
there's
Oh,
something.
okay.
I've been
Just
pulling things
checking.
out. It's gonna be the big surprise, the big reveal. But anyway, I guess the point of all that is I am really trying to stay in the present here. But I've been contemplating this idea of like fitness because I've gone out running the last few or maybe 4 out of the last 6 days. 2 of them felt great, 2 of them felt awful, and I've been battling plantar fasciitis in my left heel, and I know that that is a painful like pressure point, but I also, for me, I realize that's or at least my theory on that is it's an imbalance, a running imbalance, or just some kind of a body imbalance. So I was thinking today about this idea of doing, what do they call it when you go circuits, like
Mm-hmm.
internal, like push-ups to pull-ups to core work to whatever. I was thinking about just starting to do that kind of stuff because I was actually talking about one of our buddies yesterday, Mark. He's in my age group, and we're talking about how like doing different chores around the house like can make you feel so. Even if you're in like Ironman shape and you go out and work in the yard for about half a day, you realize how sore you are. And we were talking about how it feels like occasionally we get old when we do stuff like that, and we feel young most of the time and whatever. So I'm all about this idea of how you always say build your chassis. I don't know what the hell's going on with my chassis right now. Some days I can run really good, other days I'm kind of down. So I'm really just more interested in building sort of like what I call rounding out my muscles and rounding out my body and overall strength, and I'm just not thinking about racing. And and I think that that is all relative to other people in different ways. That could mean how we say pulling back a little bit on your runs and just kind of easing back on the speed and just like I always like to think about when I'm not trying to force myself into like shape faster than I should. This idea of just when you exercise in a way that kind of feels like you're being kind to your body and you're building it up, I guess, rather than pushing it and stretching it and like pounding it and things like that, because it's so easy to do that once we get warmed up. But like these ideas of like going slow out of the gate and then staying there and staying in a pocket. So I'm I have to do that. I'm also looking for like positive news. I mean, I read the other day that Google searches for good news are like going through the roof right now, and
Interesting.
you have to dig a little bit because to me the psychology of this is, and we talk about it, but like it's that unrealized stress level that you're carrying around. And
Mm-hmm.
when you talk about like, yeah, I just went out for a 40-minute run, an easy run, and it was just sucked. And I think a lot of that is just because of this mental weight that's subconscious, that's just kind of like every day we wake up and the first thing we see in our mind is this like virus all over the world, and it's like, we're trying to wrap our arms around it and and catch the wind or something like that. And it's just this big, impossible, unsolvable, unknowing solution right now. And
Mm-hmm.
we just, as humans, I think we have this natural tendency to try to solve it in our brains. And it's just like this, it's like that motor in the background that just keeps running. And it's like, man, I gotta figure out a solution for this. I gotta figure this out. How am I gonna do this? I'm gonna solve this problem. And it's going all the time, whether you realize it or not. And again, that's why things like meditation are so important for me, because I have to calm that motor down. I have to calm that down. It's like that wheel just keeps spinning, and it always like pops up. The thoughts pop up when you least expect them, and things remind you of things, and it's that extra stress level that just wears you down when you're out there doing stuff. And it's that, like, you don't have the fluidity in your motions and all these types of things. So for me, it's just about being kind to yourself, and really, instead of trying to win that race today, just realizing that today is today, and adjust and adapt and do what feels right today.
Energize yourself, man. Like, you shouldn't be crushing yourself right now, and like
100%.
pushing yourself,
Immunity is
pushing
so
yourself.
important.
Right. I mean, but you've got like a couple ends of the spectrum. It's like, some people, like, you can't work out, it's going to tear up your immunity then, but the reality is that exercising is good for your immunity. Do you want to, like, throttle it up a few times? Absolutely. Do you want to go out and do like a 2.5 hour zone 5 run? No, you don't. So you need to feel it. And I think that's important. Next one is from Summer Scandrge. Would you and Mike consider doing a live podcast on Zoom while we're on there for our weekly meeting? We've been doing uh, weekly meetings with all of our athletes. We did a Q&A. I did one on mental and a kind of emotional stability, and then not yesterday, but Wednesday, I did one that'll be posted in our online hub here in a couple days. I did kind of a behind the scenes training peaks on what I look at, how I structure and program sessions and weeks, and then behind the curtain a little bit more in terms of analyzing stuff. But we've been doing that, and it's fun to see everybody's faces. So would you, Mike, consider doing a live podcast on Zoom? I don't have any idea how that would work, but I figured I'd put you up right now and ask you live if you would be interested in doing that.
I'd consider it.
Okay, I'd consider it as well.
No, I'll
We can
do
talk
it. I'm
about
gonna
it
do
off
whatever
air.
it takes, man. We can just
Yeah,
go on
that's
there
true.
and
I am
shoot
too.
the
Like,
shit with our
I'm
athletes.
willing to.
That
I'm
is
willing to
already
do.
posted, by the way, in the hub.
Oh, it is.
Oh
Okay,
yeah, it was
nice.
up there yesterday, I think.
Yeah, I
Some good
consider it
stuff. You were
too.
talking about the depths of training peaks, and I think a lot of people learned some important lessons about looking at the numbers, being obsessed with numbers.
Yes, it was hopefully. But yeah, I always love doing stuff like that. Kevin Taylor, indoor trainer rides suck. They can or they cannot, but anything can suck. It depends on how things are going for you. Connor Bradley had a question about tethered swimming. Yeah, I'm gonna pass on that one. Brad Creamer, how to ramp down training after your late May Ironman got postponed. I feel like we covered that a little bit in the
Yep.
first 20-minute diatribe I went on. More of it is just kind of going back and cutting your volume. It depends on how much volume you went up, but I would definitely cut it back. I think this is Ioanna asked, is there such a thing as too much core strengthening? If you don't do heavy weights and allow your body time to recover, can you have an approach like the one you had in outside running? I would not know how to structure a 6 day a week same thing of how outside running. I generally think that there is absolutely that too much of anything is bad. It just like we talked about in the first part of this podcast was that you can't just do it and do it and do more and do more and do more without giving your body time to rest and recover and adapt. Because if you don't, then all you're doing is just is using all the ability and strength or fitness you have out of that specific muscle group or that specific session, and you're just repeating it over and over again. You're not allowing your body to adapt and get better. So you always have to have time to recover. So yes, I would say that's there is always a too much.
Though I have to add something on that. I've always heard that the core area, because the muscles are kind of woven together more than straight, muscles like you would find in your bicep, or that kind of run the length of your arm or whatever. But core muscles kind of interweave with each other. So I have heard, and I think the calf muscles are similar, but don't quote me on that. But like I've heard that you can work the core muscles because of that a little bit more than normal.
I like it.
And the core, if you think about it, man, the core drives everything, so it's got to be pretty damn strong. It's probably stronger than we think it is.
I'm sure. Yeah, at the core of it, we know this. Jack, I love when you two get all philosophical. So what about who are we becoming during this time? I'm trying to emerge as a better person that I want to be, that I went into this, and then better habits, better mindset, more courageous, and just being a better overall human. Phew. Yeah, that's a deep one.
Ooh.
Um,
Yeah, I like this one. I told her.
you
Yes.
know, I really like this one. Um, and I found myself yesterday. I wasn't thinking about this specific question or a suggestion, but there was a time yesterday where I thought like that, and obviously I fully understand that there are a lot of not awesome, terrible things happening, and nothing that we're all going through right now is ideal, but there are parts for me, for us and our family of what's going on right now that I hope to keep. And what I mean by that is, I feel like we've done a better job as a family unit this last week, just enjoying each other. Like yesterday, it's like, it's a Thursday, and at like 4 o'clock, or in a minute, for like 3 o'clock, for like 45 minutes, we set up like three different forts in our upstairs playroom. And then Hayden had one, Allie had one, and I had one, and played like basically like dodgeball. Like you just trying to hit each other with the balls, and if they went like in the middle of the room, you had to go grab them, but you couldn't throw anything at anybody until you got back to like your base or your fort. And we haven't laughed that hard, and I don't know how long. All three of us, just because we were like, I'd smack Hayden in the face, and he'd like smack me a couple times, and that'd make Allie laugh, and vice versa. And it's like you think, and yeah, do we do stuff like that as a family? Every once in a while in life, but I feel like and this is for me, things have slowed down so much that I have realized that there was a lot I've been missing, and that's something I want to keep. I want to make that more of a priority, and I feel like I've valued the sim the simplicity of how just family is, and how the time we have is so valuable and so fortunate, and so I think, in terms of like changing who I am, it's not so much changing who I am, I guess, but more of, I hope that I hold on to this appreciation of time, and I hope that I understand, and I continue to understand and feel that the best way to like speed things up is to slow things down, and that goes with life. And absorbing this time with Hayden, and knowing that, if like he comes out of this and all he knows is that he just didn't go to school for a few weeks, or a month or two even, um, but had a good time, and we had like this unique opportunity for for 60 days to like really enrich our father-son relationship, and for the three of us to do things we normally wouldn't have time for, and like, the middle of balancing and figuring things out and weighing things here and there, is I think there's a lot of good to come out of it, and I found that yesterday, thinking of like, I hope some of this doesn't go away, this feeling. There's obviously a lot that I hope does go away, like looking outside yesterday, taking Hayden to outside to ride his bike, and you saw like four couples out with themselves, like walking the street. We live on just a one street with two cul-de-sacs, and it resembled kind of like people getting out of prison, like walking the yard, like just getting out, for they couldn't go anywhere else, and I didn't like that feeling. But there's a lot of it that I feel feels good, and I think appreciating and wanting to help people out, and increasing the size of your table, and letting more people, sit with you and do things, not obviously like in the physical sense, because we can't do that now, but just helping people and taking time to appreciate what we have and the opportunities that we have, and how lucky we are, and how when life gets back to like when it speeds up full blast, when everyone's going to be almost like overdoing it, I think, because everybody's going to try to be catching up from this time that they didn't get. And the reality is it's a lot of things going to be minimized. Your time is going to be lost. And I think right now is for me, specifically, it's about just like enjoying how much that I've had to slow things down. There's no athletes racing on the weekends, which is taking like, I don't have, my brain power isn't there. It's different. And I've enjoyed a lot of aspects of it, to be honest with you.
Mm. Well, you know me, man. Um, I
Yeah, I
I
thought
like
I
to
did till that beep post.
I like to err on the side of chill in life, and like I keep looking at this like, okay, I don't want to like. Honestly, it really hasn't changed much in me, because I feel like I've always or at least for the last several years, or 5 or 10 years, maybe at least, been in this idea that I felt like things were just moving so fast. I know so many people that get up, grind it out, go to work, do their thing all day, and they get back. And I feel like it's just almost like they're living in a dream that never stops, and they don't even really step back and look at their lives. And it's this, chasing the money or chasing the jobs or promotions or whatever it may be. And to me, this is the perfect, opportunity to kind of look at that and go, wait a minute, is that what I'm doing here? Is that what I'm doing on this earth and as a human being? Like, completely wiped out all the time, waking up and, pounding coffee and getting your week started, and then just holding on for dear life till Friday, and then, I'm just going to sleep all week. I mean, it just seems so unbalanced, and there's a lot of that. And plus, the other thing I was looking at is like, are we going to realize that, things have been pretty good? I mean, a lot of people talk about, like, quote unquote, like, we've had, over the last, 10 years or so, maybe, things in this country, at least from a perspective of opportunity and, making money, people are making more money than they ever have. We have, the craziest products now that can do anything, like from make your bed to, like, clean up the house while you're sleeping. I mean, there's a lot of, like, crazy luxuries in this world. But, like, man, the temperament of, and of course this isn't everybody, it's the outliers, but this whole, like, everything sucks mentality, everybody's mad. And I just felt like everybody was really upset and, like, angry about stuff. That feels like that kind of undertone, like, I'm talking about, like, on social media or whatever, in the news, all these types of things. And I'm like, it's not that bad, man. You can kind of do what you want. I think it's just a matter of figuring it out. Maybe this is a really good time to do that. It's it's a time to sit back and reflect and think about what you're doing here. And honestly, this can apply to triathlon too, because I kind of gotten in a loop where I was just grinding it out and grinding it out, and I was, just fatigued and sucking it back up again and going for it. I was talking another thing we were talking about yesterday when I was talking about one of our athletes is, like, I have this real desire to qualify for Kona, but I don't know if I have a desire to go to Kona and actually do it. You know what I mean? Like, the amount of energy that would take at my age to really get my act together enough to get from 15th in my age group to the top in the podium is going to take a lot. And I think I can do it. I think I want to do it, but I just don't know if I would accept that certificate from Mike Riley if I did it. Because the thought of bringing it back and then going out into the lava fields and, really wanting to produce again, I mean, that seems like 2 years of, like, more intensity that I want in my life right now. So those are the kind of things I think about. It's like, man, we have a really good chance here to kind of sit back and really start appreciating the simple things. And
It's looking at it as an opportunity,
what we always
and
talk about, yeah,
ultimately.
like this, in, like, businesses, it's always like scaling up and, maximizing opportunities and all these kinds of things. And you and I, we talk about that sometimes, but honestly, we always err on the side of, like, let's just kind of do what feels right and not push this, and let, the business build in a reasonable way and at a pace we can handle. And why do we want to add more and more stress to our life? Because of why? You know,
Hmm.
most of us have enough of what we need within arm's reach, or, within our communities. And I don't know why there's always the desire to have more and more and more. It's a good
Oh,
time to kind of,
you got to spend money to make money, Mike. You got to spend money to make money.
oh, I know, but that's like that weird philosophy, right? Yeah, it's like,
It's not right though. It's like you see all these billion-dollar corporations that have a crappy month, and all of a sudden they have to be bailed out with billions of dollars because they had one down month.
yeah, and then
Anyway,
they can figure it out and keep going into the same. I mean, like, that's the thing. It's like I was listening to something the other day about, like, they were talking about this guy that was really good at manipulating the books and making the company survive, even when it was losing money and losing money. And then he would eventually put it in a good position and sell it and make a ton of money. and it was like just living in a loss to make money. It's just
Hmm.
such a weird thing to think about. It's like, is that what you do?
Well, I think
You move money around and get loans and all these things. And
bailouts and all kinds of stuff. I think it's interesting that kind of not that outlook, but that approach. I think the more is always more is, the way we have to do. We got to spend more money. We got to do more because that's how we do it. We got to train more hours. We got to sign up for more races. And then something like this happens.
right,
And you see, and with athletes, you see the ones that overcommit to so many hours and these super high expectations and all these races. Now that like things aren't perfect, I think they're finding themselves like, okay, well now what I can't do this because they overcommitted. They're always over the top and never just within striking distance. They're already there. They're way over the top. But it's I think, yeah, it's all about opportunity. Shining the light in good positive places. Old Garry Crosby, is it safe, fair, or even a good idea that athletes could potentially qualify for 70.3 World Championships by virtual racing? The safety thing, I'm not sure I understand that part. All races are safe in my opinion, and the speed of athletes, I'm not sure if you've been, well, we both been in triathlons, but I've seen more epic fails from fast triathletes than I have with slower ones. In terms of like not being able to make turns and weaving in and out and being reckless. So I don't know what the fair thing is, but just don't tell me that it's a world championship when you can qualify from your bedroom. Like that's just not. It's just no thanks. Um,
well,
Dorice, it's just not like just
I don't
don't
even
tell
know
me.
what virtual. I don't go into those worlds.
I know. Well, there's no world. Everything's worlds now. The World Championships of cul-de-sac, cross stitching. Um, Doris, your thoughts on the? It's just not like. Stop telling me this. The phrase like World Championships is like the most overrated like phrasing. And it's all about money, in my opinion. But Doris, this is a great
World
question.
champion video game gamers.
Right, yeah. Your thoughts on the ethical debate of riding bikes outside right now? Getting outdoors is paramount for mental health, but in hard hit areas, is the risk of potential accident worth the risk/strain on the healthcare system? Uh, Thanks for making us get all serious here, Doris.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Let me put on my PC cap here.
This
I
you can't win on this one, dude.
yeah, sure you can. Just be
All right.
honest. Tell you feel like, you want to judge me on based on what I'm saying, then that's fine. I sent an email out earlier this week. I've been sending out kind of a weekly email right now as things are so, volatile and crazy and just nuts, to be frank. And I told our athletes that right now I feel like as long as you're being responsible, you should get outside when you can. Not so much to go out and do something that's risky, but to go out for your mental health. Obviously, if you're living in a place that has very strict rules, you're under, very, strict shelter-in-place orders from your state, then abide by those. Don't be an idiot. I think we have a sense of responsibility right now to not just do no harm to ourselves, but do no harm to other people in the public and don't put undue strain on in what doesn't need to be there. So is it a need or is it a want? That's always the question with most of everything that we do as humans. Like you say, I just really need that. Like, do you? Or do you just want to because you feel entitled to? And I think that's right. I think if you really want to get outside for your mental health, then go for a walk, or go for a run, on the pavement that's safe. Like, don't put yourself in a dangerous circumstance just because you're technically allowed to. I think you just have to be smart. You have to be responsible. Obviously, you can't plan things like people get hurt, walking their mailbox and spraying their ankle. Like there's just you just need to be smart. I think there's a way to be responsible to yourself right now, which is getting outside when you can in a responsible manner that's going to mitigate any kind of extra risk or assuming that things might get, more dangerous by going on, rides in crappy parts of town or really technical routes like, hop over to the safest place, the safest runway, and just be safe and be close to your house. I think that's the way to look at it, and go out and run. Today I woke up this morning, I ran. They've just now closed like all the trails here in Chattanooga. They've locked the parking lots down. Your runner shelter in place, and I went out and ran 10 miles this morning, and basically didn't never 10 miles, but never left like a 2 mile radius of my house. To try to be mindful. I was still doing what I needed to do. I was still doing the exercise I wanted to do. I was still being outside. Was it the route that I wanted to do? No. Was it running around the ridge and going into downtown and hitting the greenway? No. Was it putting myself 4 or 5 miles away from the house in case something happened? No. But there's a happy medium, and I think that's where we should find ourselves right now, is in that kind of happy medium space of doing the best for ourselves while also being responsible and doing the best we can for, the human race right now.
The worst injury I've had in the last 15 years was in a parking lot. I was trying to step over one of those like parking curbs, and I hit the edge of it, and I wrenched my ankle and broke my foot. So yeah, I mean I just brought that up because you said you can get injured in your
yeah, I mean, like
whatever, but like
car accidents, or a lot of them happen like the 1 mile from your house.
Yeah, or getting out of bed, like when you put your socks on and hurt your back, that kind of stuff. I think it's just like, but hey, the shelter in place thing. So it sounds like that's in place here. I don't think I've been breaking it, but what exactly is that? I can't go out. Can I go running still? I'm waiting for people to start yelling at me for running.
Yeah, I heard like somebody like yelling from a house this morning, but then I was like, oh man, am I getting yelled at for running outside? But then I was like, a lot of these people have been trapped in their house for 3 weeks. They could be yelling at anybody. So Chattanooga yesterday, early morning, and I'm not like this isn't. This is as best I understand it. I'm sure if I need to be corrected, I am sure somebody will. Yesterday in Chattanooga, they said before the mayor of Chattanooga said that we were going to have our own shelter in place. We were closing Chattanooga. We live in Hamilton County. We're like not even a mile out of or out of Chattanooga. But basically, it was like essential businesses can be open, which is a joke because liquor stores are deemed essential, right? That's an essential thing that has to be open. And this whole list of things that has to be open that's essential. Right now, and they lifted list of essential businesses. Non-essential businesses have to close. You cannot go out. Basically, shelter in places. You can go out and exercise, ride your bike, walk your dog, leave your house if you have to, exercise, run, but you have to do it alone. And you need to hopefully stay close to your house. So your exercise is deemed for most places acceptable in shelter in place to get out and go run. And ride your bike close to your house by yourself.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So hey, that's what I'm doing.
No, that's good. I mean, but I heard that. Is it true that your mountain got closed down?
Yeah, they closed a parking lot that I went to yesterday morning, and then we went and ran like the Stringers Ridge is right behind our house. They're supposed to close that off as well, because the governor of Tennessee, I guess his shelter in place order of closing parks supersedes or overtakes whatever the local mayor of what he had in place, because he was going to keep some things open, and his was going to go in effect on Saturday. And then the mayor or the governor of Tennessee, who's just been, I don't know, 3 weeks late on everything, is finally coming down on and taking that out. So yeah, I think it's basically no trails. I may or may not find myself on one behind our house, but hey, I don't know. I'll be responsible.
I mean, come on, I don't know.
Yeah, hey, listen, I get it. I get it. Let's end on a more non-political one. Let me go back. Joshua Venus, can you reiterate for what I feel like might be the 95th time on this podcast? Can you reiterate time-based versus distance-based training? I always love Robbie's perspective on this. As soon as this will be the last one for the day. As soon as I popped this up, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and settle this for the last time, even though I will be asked about it a lot. The reason that I specifically, and many other coaches specifically, program. And what he's asking here is, why would a coach prescribe a 50-minute run over a 5-mile run? So a coach's job is to manage stress and to manage load. You can manage that easily with effort and time. Distances vary and can vary not just by minutes, but by half hours or hours. Example, if I told you to go out and run for 60 minutes, no matter what, at a zone 2 effort, no matter what, I know basically within a very small margin of error the amount of stress you're going to get out of that 60 minutes, because it's effort and it's time. You're going to be running at this effort for 60 minutes. However, if I said go, and that's for, think about it. It's not just one session. Think about 4 to 5 runs a week, right? So for 4 to 5, because I'm managing overall weekly volume and stress and load. So I can manage that within a very small percentage of risk here. Now, I'm going to tell an athlete, I need you to run 5 miles today, and then 7 miles, and then 5 miles, and then 7 miles, and then 5 miles, and then 13 miles for the week. That's what your week looks like for running. A 5-mile run could be, and let's say you average, 8.5-minute miles on a really good day. Well, what about a bad day? What about in August when it's 110 degrees? What about on a day where you don't feel very good? What about windy conditions? What about elevation changes? Your run where you might get 50 miles in 42 minutes, well, in one day, depending on the terrain, might get you 52 to 55 minutes. So you're adding in 12 minutes just on that one run. Extrapolate that and multiply it over every single run and the variances between just the minutes in running. You could be looking at over an hour of extra time and extra load, which if you're scheduling and trying to program, a specific amount of duration per week, you might be looking at a 25% increase in stress, which is huge, which is a lot when you're already managing the overall kind of global stress of an athlete. That's tipping point stress. You're not even calculating swimming and cycling. Cycling stress, you and I go out to the lab and we say go ride 80 miles. Well, you and I might knock that out in 340, right? Because it's super flat, it's not technical, you can knock it out quick. But now I go say knock out 80 miles on the trace, and now I might be looking at 5 hours because of the terrain. And then you add that into, so let's say it's an hour and a half different on just one bike ride, one of the week. You're looking at adding and doing it with the runs in all the rides and doing it with swims. You're looking at your hands off the wheel of managing stress, because there is a variable every day. So you're not able to predict things, you're not able to plan as well. That's why time is so essential, in my opinion, in managing stress, is because you can manage it day to day, week to week accurately. If you don't, then and this is also true of athletes that do a lot of things based on mileage, is that they're always going to pick the easiest route because it's going to go by the fastest. Or they want to hop on, they want to draft, and I say go out and run, it's do 100 miles. They're going to be drafting, they're going to be taking the easy route because they want to get it done fastest with the fastest miles per hour. Like, minutes and effort frees you to just do the work, not meet an expectation within a certain time frame that yields a certain pace that leaves you feeling validated. There's just so many different ways you can look at success in managing load, but giving someone a time, because we've all done this. If I told you to go out and run 2 hours right now, you just go run 2 hours. Whatever it is was whatever it is. But in 3 months, when it's August, and I say, go run, for example, in like a month where we keep going through this, like, identity crisis of the seasons, where one day it's 55 and 60 and the next day it's 95, your 13, 14-mile runs, we're not looking at just minutes of differences. Now we're looking at, especially if you imagine this, let's say you take a 13-mile long run on the easy flat half mile, or an easy flat very cool course. Let's say that gets you 2 hours. Well, then the next week it's 20 degrees warmer, it's super windy, right? And you've got more fatigue in your legs. the terrain is more difficult, that 2-hour run might turn into 220 to 225. You're looking at 10% increases in volume in just one run. And so you can't manage stress that way. You're flying by the seat of your pants. You're only obsessed with the number. You're not obsessed with the stress that can happen or controlling that stress that happens for the long term. That's why a majority of people, in my opinion, I know there's plenty out there that do mileage. That's the benefit of managing stress, is by doing it by duration, because I know exactly the stress that's going to happen no matter what. Because a 40-minute run of zone 2 is going to be a 40-minute run zone 2. The terrain just manipulates your pace. It doesn't manipulate the stress, as long as you're keeping it to what I'm asking. So there, it reduces the variables and it maximizes your ability to maintain and manage stress and load, which is a coach's #1 job and should be a self-coached athlete's #1 job as well.
Yeah, I mean, simplified, it's if you gave me a 60-minute zone 2 run or a 6-mile run, I would do the 60-minute zone 2 in 60 minutes, or I would do the 6-mile run in 50.
Right.
And that would not be zone 2, because
Mm-hmm.
I just want to get it done.
Just get it done. Yeah, everybody does. Just want to get it done. I want to push it.
It's a patience. It's such a good thing for patience, man. It's and it treats your body right, I think.
Yep.
So
treat your body right.
Treat your body right. Okay.
Well, I feel like we treated this podcast right.
Sure, man.
It's 361. Hey, as always, we appreciate you tuning in, giving us your time. We know it is precious, especially right now. Hang in there. Try to be as happy as you can. Be healthy. Be kind to yourself. Be gracious. Do your best. Hop on over to our website. If you have any questions about anything, c26triathlon.com. It's your one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. And is also where our online hub is, which is being flooded with new members, but also, most importantly, more content each week. We've got squadcasts on there. We've got blogs coming in every week. We've got a recording of our team Zoom chat, which is like an hour and 15 minutes. So hop in there, check it out. You can choose whatever financial registration you feel is comfortable for you. $9, $29, $49, whatever you feel you can do. I feel like that's best. Hop on in, check it out, and let us know what you think.
Yeah, and each of those tiers of pricing go through September 30th of this year, and the way things are going, it might be a lifetime membership.
No, seriously.
I mean, we're just trying to like give out information, keep you guys informed, entertained as we go, and have a little fun with it. Doing more and more interviews with our athletes, and I just interviewed Jessica Jacobs, who's one of our coaches. She's over in Germany and has an unbelievable, great attitude, and adds a lot of really good racing information. And what she's former pro triathlete and now coaching, and has won Ironman Wisconsin. And she just has a lot of good things to say. I think it's a really interesting interview. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff popping up. We're still sorting through it, but if you like the podcast and you've gotten a lot of things from it, it's a really nice little way to kind of support it and be a part of the community. And
absolutely.
Super accessible and easy. So there's a preview page if you want to check it out on there. It's under the drop down under the online hub on the menu bar. So check it out. Anything else do we have rolling here?
That's all we got, man.
Yep. Keep your heads up, and we'll keep coming at you.
Keep on trucking.
All right, buddy. Thanks, man.
Yeah, man. See you, dude.